Walter MONG'ARE is one of the 5 presidential candidates who have so far been cleared by the IEBC for the August 9th presidential election. Okay? Who are the other four? So we have Walter MONG'ARE, number 1 on the list. Number 2 on the list? Wajakoya.
Yeah.
Number 3 on the list? William Ruto. Number 4?
Raila Odinga.
Raila. Number 5?
Wahiga.
Yes. Mwaure Wahiga.
In that order, right?
In that order,
on
yes.
the ballot and the announcement, right? Okay. Yeah. Come on,
if you didn't know, now you know. Mheshimiwa Rais, karibu kwenye kituo.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's good to have you on the show.
I'm privileged and humbled. The last time I was here, we were making a lot of noise. We are here now to speak presidential.
The last time you were here, you were working in the office of the president.
Yes.
This is where you got the bug.
Yes. It makes no sense for somebody to work in the office of the president, admire and things for 5 years, see where everything is, see where the doors are, see how work is done, and then you don't want to take up the responsibility. Yes.
Is this what drove you to this? Because very many people, even after we started circulating this promo and saying that you'll be coming to the studio, very many were asking, so what made Walter want to go for the presidency?
I think the answer is very, very simple. We continue to, we've become a whining and complaining country. And for the longest, we are pointing out what is not working. And we're not happy. But no one seems to be taking a bold step to say, okay, fine. Okay, we can't be here and whine all the time and complain and call other names and become keyboard warriors. And we're not doing anything about it. And so I thought and I felt it's an opportunity for me to offer myself for those of us who are not happy with status quo, for those of us who are keen on making a difference from within and from the front and not the background.
It's very interesting that you say that because, oftentimes we say career is the composite of everything that you've done over time. So even before you started working in the office of the president, what you're most remembered for, in some levels, is the satirical approach you took towards government in the groups that you formed.
Okay.
Many would have seen that as fun, but there were messages that came out through a lot of the comedy that you did. And sometimes there was criticism of government, criticism of the things that were not going right in the country that you talk about now. Do you see this as an opportunity to right some of those wrongs that you made fun about? And I'm saying that because it was kind of a way to ease the pressure, which yourself, you've said many times.
Yes.
So now taking up a position that oftentimes you used comedy to bring out earlier in the same government, do you see that now as an opportunity to say, well, let's start to fix some of these things?
I would also want to, thank all those who supported us through our career. And as we were growing up, the majority of the people subscribed to Ridiculous, and thanks to Tony and KJ, who's a member of parliament for Dagoretti and I pray that he makes it back. And the many of you, Eric was there when we were growing up, when we were trying to do things differently. And that is also then the thinking then and the narrative that we had then. You can either go to the streets to change the government or to change things or to, get people to do the right thing, or you can use satire, you can use creative space, you can use your mind, you can use poetry, you can use music, you can use art to communicate without necessarily having to go to the road, without making noise or calling people names. And that's what we tried to do at that point. And I think that on its own has been a contributor to the journey that I continue to have. I'm not just Walter who's doing this on my own. I think I'm a sum total of everybody who supported me in the career space, in the comedy space, in the entertainment industry, and up to today. And the more than 50,000 guys who gave me signatures and their IDs as we were begging them to take those things to IBC. And I just wanted to tell Eric, we were the first candidature to be cleared within a record 5 minutes. Yes, and
You went
we were
to
never told to go back.
Your
and
first
come.
And
hit.
check
You went
this.
the first
Yeah,
time.
the first
and
round, and that was it. And we believe this is the first time Umoja Summit Party is actually a 3-year-old party is fielding a presidential candidate. The rest of the candidates, majority of them are parties that have come together to try and make this happen. And so we pride ourselves as being Umoja Summit Party. Yes.
So with that, you think you're winning in the first round, Pia? Okay. Walter,
Say
there
no
are
more.
many people see you,
Yes.
they of course remember Ridiculous. Then they also now remember Nyambane, the radio host, Nyambane is a musician, and they don't know anything else. What else have you done in your career?
I don't know how I'm supposed to answer that question because I've done so many things. I don't know which ones are for radio, which ones are not.
Perhaps you should
Which ones add to this position that you're looking to serve in?
I would also like to add.
Yes.
Perhaps there's a journey that you've gone through to get here. Okay?
Yes.
What you started off with, what you thought, what you wanted to see done, and how it is the things you then did subsequently brought you to this sum total that you've referred to.
I call it the 7-second signature. I realized that every position I've served, there's a boss above me. And I have to convince them that this is the right thing to do. And it's the prerogative of that boss to decide whether they want to implement what I've told them or not. I worked as an advisor I worked at the state broadcaster, and I realized just how much resources the country has and parastatals have, but not optimized. For instance, the national broadcaster has assets. If we were to actually accumulate them and give them a value, runs into billions. But a state broadcaster, if you were to go there, the workers are complaining. And so those are the things that's the part of the journey I was looking at. Who has the power of the pen to make the 7-second signature to impact people positively? I realized if I'm not the MD, I can only be an advisor. I went to Kisii County. I was the advisor to the governor. We took the first 5 years to do institutional.
Let's just be clear for everybody. So
Yes.
at KBC, you were radio programs
I was,
manager.
yes, the head of radio.
You are the man in charge of all the radio stations.
yes.
English, Swahili, vernacular.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was incidentally, if you allow me to expound on a few things, I went in when the corporation had 3 active frequencies. In 2 years, I had about 13 active frequencies. And I was very proud of myself. And that's what they have today. It just shows you how, if you are willing to change some things, you can. I went in an environment where people are saying a radio station takes about 70 million to be put up. I'd come from private sector where a radio station can actually be put up by 7 million. The biggest budget being on the transmitter. So why would you say that a radio station is 70 million? To set up. I don't think if I look at your sophisticated items here, even if I was to do the sum total, hamjafika kama 17 to 20 million. Lakini sasa kuna wale. Hamjafika hapo. Mko prudent in expenditure. So
then you became an advisor to Kisii governor.
Yes, and the first 5 years, don't laugh too much. The first 5 years,
We've just been called a proper radio station.
when I become president, I'll remember you. I will donate some equipment.
Sawa.
Msinipunguzie hewa. We can be here until 9. Thanks. So at Kisii County and any governor today, the first 5 years, no governor can pride themselves in having done a fantastic job or fixed the counties because it was a new phenomenon. And therefore, the first 5 years, we took time to do what you call the institutional framework, getting the counties to have a structure by which they can operate. It's the second phase of the devolution governance that things begin to take shape.
Wishima, can I disagree with you just slightly?
Yeah, you can have an opinion.
The view that you have explains what many people who are in that space of governorship have said. But then there are those who also argue that those 5 years, especially when you have something new, that is the opportunity that you normally have to make the hugest strides you possibly can, because it's like being given a blank slate.
Yeah.
And it's you who more or less determines which step to take and in the direction you want to take it. And the second term, as you refer to it, then is now solidify,
Yes.
not start, to solidify what you started. Just a little perspective.
And we're on the same page, by the way. When we talk about institutional framework, it doesn't mean that things are not happening. It's just to realize that majority of the counties inherited the workforce that was in the municipalities, and that meant that much of the money that went to the counties was for wages, as opposed to development. Nothing big exponential that would have taken place. And I'm not saying that some counties were not successful. Some counties were successful of those governors that came from public service, because they were easy to to keep going. And that is one of the things that I pride myself in. I'm not going in as a president as a rookie. I've had the privilege of serving in positions not of the 7-second signature that I was talking about, but at least I'm
advisory
exposed.
role. So you played an advisory role in the Kisii County government.
Yes.
You also worked in Nairobi.
Yes, with Evans Kidero, who I hope he makes it for Homa Bay County. He wants to run for governor. Is he been up?
He's been cleared.
He's been cleared.
by the
Yeah,
IBC.
okay.
been cleared.
All the best. That was my boss for about 4 years before I went into State House.
So in this second term, you've worked in now the national government,
Yes.
working in the office of the president.
Yes.
Again, advising the 7th signature person.
Yes.
Okay, so what has your advice?
And-
what has your advice given us? Tumekula nini sababu ya advice yako?
And
As
that
a
is
country.
that's exactly why we are here. And I would always say this: the Kibaki, for instance, had a very successful run. We all remember him. Majority of us will remember him for the road, Thika Road. But if you look keenly, he's one of the few administrators and economists who improved the civil service and service delivery, which was the biggest output as opposed to the road that we see. So when it comes to advisory and processes of government, some advisory may take up to 4 to 5 years for you to feel the effect. A decision that you make, for instance, the expressway, which we've used to get here in a record 5 minutes from Westlands, it has taken longer before you could see it. And so some of the advisories that we would give would have a long-term impact as opposed to a quick fix kind of thing. One of the things that I can pride myself in is the inclusion and mainstreaming of the youth agenda in majority of the ministries. Because the last time we had a youth policy was at the 2010 handover and changeover. So since 2010, up to 2017, we had not had a revised youth policy. So together with the sector that is involved with youth affairs, that's the Ministry of Youth, with the advisory office of the president, we went out to make sure that we have a refreshed policy for the youth that is all inclusive, that has every voice in there, in order for us to have a systematic way of solving the youth agenda. Yeah, so I'm proud of that. There's that youth policy that now is in place that we can use as a template. The inclusion of young people in the ministries as CASs, as you can see, and I would always say sometimes some of these things you require proof. I might need to print my email that catalyzed a certain process for you to see. But the overall effect of the collective responsibility that we all have in different portfolios of government is what now gives you a result.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to get the hard-hitting questions, and you're
Which
going
is
to
super.
get the opinions. And so then one of the ones that stands out then is, if you've been involved in these processes whereby the little details come together to make and form this big idea, and you want to move on to the next step, the question is, why choose this seat of president to go after? Why not continue on? If your interest then lies in making sure the little pieces come together, why not pick another seat? Why pick this one?
The country is governed under a very clear structure of the CEO of a country. This institution that you have here, the backstops to the CEO. When I talk about the 7-second signature, is I want to have the authority to change and impact people's lives. That means I don't want to be the one to advise. I want to be the one to be advised. And on top of that, it's because I believe at at my 47 years of age, I have 13 years of active service to the country before we retire, because we talk about retirement at 60, but we still want to vote in presidents who are 82. I don't understand us. And so therefore I want to give service when I'm active in society. I want to be the guy who is responsible for the millions of people out here, who makes the final decision, because the buck stops with me. So that's why I talk about having the desire to be the top guy who makes the final decision on something that needs to happen. And I think I've got the guts to do that.
Okay, then you have to...
Your questions are very hard. Can you ask me a question? His questions are easy. I'm just joking.
Since you ask him a question.
Okay.
He asked for it. Let's all remember. Okay.
Don't fish the hard one.
No, it's a simple and straightforward question, and very easy to respond to. You've talked about policy. It's what's enshrined in paper. It's what everybody knows ought to be the guiding star when we're going about our business in government. But policy doesn't run on its own. Yes, you have a civil service, you have a leadership within the civil service, and then in this country you have a political class who, if I'm to go by everything we say and hear and read, influence everything. Now, if you get this high seat in the land...
When?
If and when you get the highest seat in the land...
Thank you, sir.
How exactly do you plan to position yourself with the political class? And this is the background from which I want you to consider. Umoja Summit Party, a new party, a brave party, a bold party, you will have representatives in parliament, you will have representatives in the county assemblies. The other bigger parties will have a bigger say in parliament. Because bigger parties they are big because they have many members within the hallowed halls of parliament. Now, in such a situation, how do you manage that political position when you know full well that, yes, you are head of the executive, but you have a legislative arm where you don't have that much might?
Well, that's not a headache for just Walter MONG'ARE, but it's a headache for all of us, including those who pride themselves to have numbers. If truly, and thanks for that guidance in the sense that there's the executive, there's the policies that we make then need to be supported by the laws, by the parliamentarians that support those policies to be implemented. One thing I know, as a young party, and I pride myself as an interesting young party that has more than 182 what you can call candidates out there for different levels of civic seats. I know, and I've seen what we call coalition governments. I know the reason why all of us sit together and come together for a common cause, why Uhuru Kenyatta will sit down and galvanize numbers of ODM and put them together with Jubilees for purposes of creating all those numbers. I think we want to shatter the norm that we think should be driving the narrative, in the sense that, first, let me make to the CEO of this country. Two, let me collaborate, because development is collaborative. It's not about my party and a six-piece suit that is going to make a difference. It's how collaboratively we work. It's how I harness the value of representation of the people at parliament as a president, as a CEO, in order for us to advance the agenda of development. So I look forward to having what you call post-election coalitions with the rest of the parties that may have numbers in parliament. And I want to believe it's not about my agenda; it's about a collective agenda for this country. So I'm looking forward to partnering with the rest of the parties once we cross that bridge and get to power.
Let's take a break. It's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, on YouTube, and on Facebook. This morning, we are hosting Walter MONG'ARE Nyambane. He is the presidential candidate under Umoja Summit Party. He's here to tell us exactly why he has chosen to go for this particular top seat and his vision for the country.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
CT Muga Nduoko, Eric Latif, and Umoja Summit Party presidential candidate Walter MONG'ARE Nyambane. Walter, who's your running mate, by the way?
My running mate is a 52-year-old beautiful Taita woman. Her name is Rachel Wali Dora Mwakazi.
Rachel Wali Dora Mwakazi.
Yes.
What's her background?
She's a philanthropist, and she's a diaspora. Do you call them diasporian or something? Is there a word like that?
She's diasporese.
We can make it.
Yeah. And so as Umoja Summit Party, we said, we've always been having these conversations of diaspora. How do we, give our brothers and sisters who we send out there to go and get expertise and exposure and come back and support us. And we seem to look at the diaspora from the money that they send, which is for subsistence, not necessarily development. So I thought, why don't we work with one? And I liked what the president said the other day, and I think he was talking about us, that it's time for us to give women a chance. And I thought he was talking about us. Yes. Yeah.
So is she back, or will she be like the West Pokot deputy governor?
She's back in the country.
Deputy president in absentia.
And she runs in the previous, her professional space. She has a number of NGOs and activities that she's been working on in the coastal region. And so that's what we want to upscale.
Okay.
Yeah, to the rest of the country.
Okay, so I want to ask you now the reality of things, okay? You said you have Umoja Summit Party has 182 candidates.
Yes.
Spread across how many counties?
Across the country.
And are they for all the seats, governor, MP, senator, woman rep, MCA?
Majority of them are MCAs. We have about 3 senators. We have 1 governor, 1.
Okay.
MPs, I will give the exact number, but the bulk is the MCAs and MPs. Yes.
And the bulk is which counties?
Most of them, we have a lot of coastal representation, and maybe it's because the party has roots from the coastal space and a bit from here in Nairobi. We have actually about 6 MCAs in Nairobi.
Okay.
And for a young party, that we pride ourselves in that.
Doing well.
And we've got even as far as West Pokot, we've got representatives in the county assembly.
You have candidates there.
Yes.
Now, the law requires that for you to be declared winner of this presidential election, you must garner at least 25% in 24 counties.
Yes.
And then now we start looking at the total number of votes that you've garnered.
Yes.
50% plus 1 of all valid votes cast. You must have worked out your numbers. Let's ask you from the numbers. How many people are you targeting, are you expecting are going to participate in this year's election?
Looking at the previous experiences, we have up to 75 or to 80% turnout in total when it comes to voters. We have the numbers will be gazetted or given will be given a clear direction by IBC by the 9th when they finish the audit to know exactly how many voters are eligible to vote. So from the speculated 24 million, you see a possible turnout of 18 million.
Okay.
Yes.
So from 18 million, you need to get at least 9 million voters.
Yes.
Voting for Walter MONG'ARE.
Very
And of
optimistic.
those, you need to have 25% in 24 counties.
Yes.
If you don't even have candidates in 24 counties.
Yes.
How are you going to get 25% of the votes cast in 24 counties? What's his strategy?
Uh,
Let's be realistic here. Walter.
Well, reality is I'm going for the top seat, and people don't vote because they belong to your party. Kenyans vote for a CEO depending on the issues that you have articulated in a platform like the one you've given me, for them to make an informed choice and choose a leader. And therefore, I'm selling myself to the country, not necessarily because of political spread of my party. And therefore, the same way we went out there and we sold ourselves when Chebukati asked us to get 48,000 signatures from a majority of the 24 counties, we ended up having support from 26 counties. So I want to believe it's not so much about the political party agenda, but the issue that we are going to sell as a presidency, as a regime that wants to come on to give service to the public.
So then let's look at what that is, because then I think it's just as critical as the numbers. The numbers, all important numbers, but at the same time, the policy or the issues are just as important. What is your vision? What are you saying? This is the thing. This is the very crux of the matter that needs to be handled for Kenya today. What resonates in your mind, or what have you planned out to say, look, in my presidency, this is what I am going to focus on?
I will have an opportunity to launch my manifesto in a bigger way and everything else. But this is a nice chance for me to articulate some of the directions. One, I don't work in isolation. I'm a collector, as I said earlier. It takes all of us to give a direction. I'm just a captain of a great team out there, the people who work behind me, who give me insights and ideas. And so the vision of the country is, from my lens and as a team captain, is a country that is self-sustained. In the sense that I think we have enough policies and enough interventions, and we have a huge human capital in this country that we could change our economic status in a very short while. And therefore, from my end and from where I sit, with all those policies, and we want to give credit to all those who have sustained the country to where it is. And maybe it's time for them, and not maybe, it's actually time for them to hand over the baton to the rest of us. So looking at one, a country that is self-sustained, making use of the human capital that we have effectively. I look at multinationals coming into our country, and people think it's because, we have a good environment, economic environment for people to thrive. No, I don't think so. I think they come for our young people. They come for our workforce. They come for our intelligence. They come for the abilities that we've got to do things. So how about creating the future work of this country? How about utilizing our human capital that we have and optimize it for the betterment of the country? So among other things, which, the others that would be, offshoot, we don't pride ourselves in having 75 items on our checklist, because more often than not, you have big four agenda and you have one that seems to be struggling or one that seems to be coming through. So we want to pride ourselves in taking first the reality check, as you said. What are those things that we need to fix as a party or as a country, and focusing on our young people and enhancing all the intervention that we have, and give it a goodwill, because we believe it's a goodwill that lacks in this country, political goodwill, to fix some of the things.
So how exactly will you do that? So you're talking about harnessing our human capital and all. Are you starting it from the education side, or are you starting it from post-education and getting into the job market? I'm not understanding how the very many people who are graduating from our universities and colleges every year and have no jobs, how you are connecting with them and telling them this is the future.
Thanks, Eric. One thing that we all must, we all must agree is that we need to define work and job. If there's anything that COVID has taught me and taught us, We all knew that a job is 8 to 5. You report at work at 8 and you leave at 5, and you've got a consistent pay at the end of the month. And then COVID hit us, and then we realized we can actually work from home. Then we realized that we can maximize on technology and still have output. And so we've been asking ourselves at Umoja, is it work that we want to enhance the future work of this country for our young people, or is it jobs? And I think there's plenty of work. It's the way we have defined it. And so we hope to redefine the workspace and what you call a job. The other thing that, as we said earlier, when we have interventions and we're looking at our young people, and I'm saying we are churning out many people from the colleges, I want to ask this question. How many skilled people do we have to give us actual output? We spend more time pumping the past education in our young people into their heads for a future job that does not exist. For the longest time, we were having accountants, and accounting was a very good job. My late dad, and God rest his soul, eternal peace, my dad felt that I needed to get a job. And even when I was successful in my career as a creative and as a talent, but he wanted me to get a job. So he would have a conversation with me from a perspective of, sasa utapata kazi siku gani? Why? Because it has been painted that you have to be an accountant, you've got to be a lawyer, and in fact you guys are just presenters. That's what they call you. You're just presenters. Yani kuweka tu microphone hivi uongee. That's the perception that we must begin to change when it comes to work and job. Majority of the young people we've churned from our schools and our colleges are actually going into reskilling in order for them to fit in the work market, in the workspace. So if that be the case, then my government needs to think from the beginning that, number one, I need to focus on first engage with engage with young people to look at what is the work future looking like. Talk about the financial market that we are all, trying to get our young people to work in the digital space, technology taking shape and everything else. But we still have people who are saying, let's go and do secretarial school. So first, the education is going to be key in our agenda in the manner that we do it. But as we do that, what is the space of technology in education? Health is going to be huge in our portfolio and in our vision, and in the sense that we don't want to tell you that go and get an HIF. I think I want a situation in a country where when you walk into a hospital, the first thing they do is attend on you and attend to you, then ask you questions later. Today, you want to take your mother or your sister or your cousin or yourself to a hospital, the hospital will ask you for a deposit even before they see you. If that is a country that we have right now of people looking at the money, the economic value of a patient before the treatment, I think that we have a conversation and we have things to do. So what is the space of technology in all this? And so, as I said earlier, it's a question of having a smart government, wanting to think differently, giving technology a space for it to thrive in everything that we do. So the people you are talking about that are jobless, I begin to question statistics. When we talk about majority of Kenyans are employed, do we have the actual data? How do we use that data to define? This is what I've learned being in the youth docket the last 5 years. That yes, first we don't have an economy that is creating enough jobs for the number of people that are graduating. So that equation is messed up. Number two, what is the quality of those we are churning from our schools to fit in the workspace? Majority of the companies have ended up reskilling. They first employ you to reskill you for you to be able to deliver. And so how many of these young people are employable? How many needs reskilling? What kind of jobs do we need? So we don't use statistics. I think we're very sensational when it comes to talking about employment, talking about unemployment.
Are you saying that we don't have a way of actually collecting this data?
We have what
Are we saying we don't have the data?
We have what I call in my space engineered data to suit certain narrative.
Actually, Kenya National Bureau
Remember,
of Statistics.
this man worked in the presidency.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's perfectly
So he's
all right.
basically saying that in OP, working in charge of youth and advising on the youth agenda, he did not have tangible data
I'm going to ask
with
the
which he was
question.
advising the president.
You're telling me
on
that
the
so
policy
all
for
the,
the
That's
youth.
paraphrased, but ask.
all the
Thanks.
data that Kenya National Bureau of Statistics churn out, because I'm a consumer of their output, and there is hardly anything that goes on in this country that Kenya National Bureau of Statistics don't capture in one way or the other if you know how to look for it. Even the data that we are speaking of. So are we saying that the data that is churned out by the National Bureau of Statistics is something that we cannot rely on?
I said, number one, we are not making use of the data in making the decisions. That was my first statement. Number two, I also indicated that data has been manipulated to suit a certain need. There are people who will tell you we have 75% unemployment rate to make it sensational. But when you actually analyze the data that you're talking about that is available, it doesn't paint that gloomy picture. Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's a government and a goodwill that we have data that we don't make use of. We have data that we are not utilizing to make informed decisions. Yes.
Then we're on the same page there.
Yes.
Now, let me go to the second matter that I wanted to raise with you. You gave the example of health, and it got my mind working because it's a devolved function. Now, how are we going to ensure that the things you say are done? Because I haven't heard you mention you're focusing on the county system of government. I argue this because the vast majority of the population in this country are actually in our counties. So, if the focus of everything that you say doesn't have a focus on the county and the special niches that each and every of our county represents, say for instance the blue economy in places like the coastal economy counties or the lake region counties, how then will we achieve this very thing, this tenuous position that you're referring to, if we do not have a greater focus on the county governments?
It doesn't mean that we don't have a greater focus on the county. I think as Walter MONG'ARE, as your presidential candidate and as your president, I want to believe that the country's policies and the policy framework lies in the presidency. The county governments then begin to be a subnational that then cascade that national policy onto the county level. That's what I want to believe. And that is why collaborative approach to governance becomes very critical. It doesn't mean as Umoja Party, the fact that we don't have governors out there, we are ignoring the value that we've gained, which is the county government. I worked in 2 county governments, and therefore I want to believe and I want to trust that I've worked there because I believe in it and I believe the value that it brings. So in our agenda, we still have a very effective framework of collaborative working with the county governments, with whichever party that makes it to the ballot and to the hearts of the Kenyans. And those will be given an opportunity to serve as governors. And I am their president. We will sit down and have a very clear working relationship with the county governments.
I want us to take a quick break because we want to say goodbye to the audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. The conversations, however, continue on SpiceFM around the country and around the globe. Also, we are on SpiceFM KE on YouTube and Facebook. Walter MONG'ARE is a presidential candidate for this election, running under the Umoja Summit Party. Our frequencies around the country: Nairobi, it's 94.4, Nakuru 96.0, Nyeri 90.9, Kisumu 102.5, 97.7 in Malindi, and Mombasa 87.9, Eldoret 96.7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
A year or the last couple of years when the economy of the country is in the doldrums, right? Debt is through the roof. Many people cannot afford to live life in Kenya. And then we also have many promises coming from many presidential aspirants talking about what they're going to do to be the economic messiah of the country. Call it whatever you like. But it is an important factor that today Kenyans are looking for the one who is going to come essentially and lead Kenya out of this economic problem. People cannot afford to eat. People cannot afford to send their children to school. People cannot afford healthcare. I mean, across the board. It is an issue. How would you look at it from where you are?
When it comes to matters to do with the debt, hakuna serikali ambayo ama hakuna mtu anaweza fanya exponential development bila deni. So let's not kid ourselves that we have a problem with debt. What we need to have is a management of those debts, taking cheaper loans, negotiating for cheaper loans, having a very systematic way of, paying off those debts. Right now as we speak, Eric and City, and we pay debts of 1960s that we were never there. We were never involved when those debts were taken. And so it's important for us not to run away from the fact that we have a debt, and we will continue to have debts if we have to develop as a country. I want to believe that the tax system at the moment may not, be service our development agenda for the country, and therefore it's good to borrow. It's how we manage, it's how we utilize our resources, and I guess the biggest challenge we have is not being unable to service those loans. I think we have financial leakages in our systems. That is what we call corruption. And we need to, that's one of the things that we need to seal. And I find corruption an environment where we want to digitize our processes. We want to use technology to safeguard our processes, but then we fall back to manual because we need then to have financial leakages. So I want to believe we borrow much of the money in the past, and I'm not here to call names or blame anyone. I'm here to sell the future value of Umoja Summit Party and the presidency of Walter MONG'ARE. So the challenges that the past regimes have had, those are their challenges. But I want to believe that we can seal the financial leakages that lead us to bleeding that you're talking about.
How can we deal with this corruption? Even President Uhuru Kenyatta has said the next administration, the biggest thing that it ought to do is finally deal with this corruption.
The truth of the matter is, Eric, we need to have real conversations. We need, in order for us to fix a problem, then we need to define that problem. We need to put a finger on that problem. When we talk about corruption, who exactly are we calling corrupt? Is it the government official who's giving you service, or is the citizen who wants service? So for me, and as for Umoja Summit, the first thing I want to do is really define or redefine what we call corruption in order for us to have a systematic way of dealing with it. I want to believe this. And indulge me, please, if you allow. I've seen in other governments what I can almost call institutionalized corruption, in the sense that in America we have something on the net that they call finder's fee, which is a certain figure for any project that any citizen would undertake, whether you're a government official or private citizen, and you have a finder's fee, a commission for a project that you have. In our corporate culture here, you have salespeople who you incentivize when they bring in a big check in terms of commissions. So when it comes to government officials who, for whatever reason, work so hard on a project and puts a project together, and probably 1% or whatever percentage seems to be going to their pocket, we call that corruption. We call that, stealing. So as I have this conversation with us, I'm persuaded to start to think, if systems work, if resources are prudently applied and discharged, personally as a president, I can allow for a minus or plus 2% of financial leakage in any process. And that's being realistic. Instead of saying that as Walter MONG'ARE, I'm going to kill people who are engaged in corruption, or I'm going to throw somebody in jail, the reality that I must ask myself, what are those things that lead us to be involved in corrupt matters? Two, I don't think corruption is an economic crime. It's a lack of values and societal values.
So it's an ethical crime.
It's an ethical crime, because I've seen people who want their passport. They will come and bribe their way to get their passport. The government officer will take the money because, well, you initiated the need. You offered that. So the way my system and my government will do it is, let me make it very easy. You want a passport in 10 hours? I will charge you 10,000. And you paid the government.
So, Walter,
yes, sir.
You're saying your presidency will fight corruption by embracing corruption?
No. I like you because you try and sensationalize what I said so that I'm out of context. But thank you, Eric. This is what it is. Make systems work. If you need an accelerated process, give you an opportunity for an accelerated process. The reason why people, like those who want public services, the reason why they bribe their way up, it's because they want to cut short the time for waiting. So if I make sure that as a government that you're getting services at the time that you need to get, then I've already cut down what I need to cut down.
Where do you draw the line? I can see that in the basic services of humans, Kenyan citizens seeking services. I want an ID. I apply for an ID. I know it's going to take 21 days. If I want it in 10 days, then I pay an extra amount for me to get it in 10 days. Where do you draw the line? I want to invest in this country.
Yes.
And I know, because this is what happens. We hear government officials ask for 20% kickback.
Yeah.
So where do you draw the line? You want this thing to be taken to be on the top of the file when the cabinet is discussing it.
Yes.
Then you pay the 20% kickback. So are you
so
not
I
just
guess,
encouraging the same problem we've been having?
I guess it's a question of the a buyer, a seller and a buyer kind of situation, willing buyer, willing seller. I want to look at it this way. If it's a mega project, if the rest of the world incentivizes mega projects as a finder's fee, I would have provision for that, so that I don't have to have my officers, my civil service, trying to cut deals to expedite a process. But I want them to know that at the end of the project, they are also commissioned, they are also incentivized, they are also appreciated for the good work they would have done. So why would any civil servant take a bribe when they know at the end of the financial year
you're going to get something anyway?
And I guess that takes me back to the days of Moi, and this just on a lighter note. City,
Yes.
do you remember there's a time we could pick money on the road? You could get like a 500, you could get 100, and then all of a sudden that kind of thing dried. Simply, I realized that resources were flowing. And when resources flow, everybody's happy. And when everybody's happy, then we don't have a challenge. So for me, as I said, have incentivized processes to mega project for my officers. Let them benefit from the decisions they're making collectively, not as an individual. If it's happening elsewhere in the world, I will do the same.
Our challenge, though, Walter, is that we've become a very individualized society. All right? So when you see people cutting those deals, budgeted corruption as we've come to know it, at the point of making a budget and allocating funds to certain projects, infrastructure projects, people have already cut deals and they know this is what the project that's going to come in. It's worth 5 billion shillings, but we're going to budget 15 billion shillings for it. So that we ate the 10 billion shillings. If you start saying that now let's share this cake among everybody who's working in this office, you think the person who has the pen, like you said, is going to want to share.
That's why I have the pen. That's why I want to have the pen as the CEO of this country. Legislate some of these processes, put them in a policy framework, incentivize people on a scheme just like it is. It's very simple. Put it in written and allow people to benefit from the great ideas they're giving as the civil service. I don't see why the equivalent of a government communication person is earning a quarter of what the corporate person is earning. I want my government or communication officer to be competitively compensated for his work or her work. And therefore, that's one way of cutting what you call,
It's odd you should say what you're saying,
Yeah.
because when we got independence, that period of the first presidency of Jomo Kenyatta, the place to work in was the civil service, not the private sector.
Exactly.
Because people even left the private sector to go and work in the public sector, because the very things that the private sector represents now was in the public
It
sector.
was the public sector, which we will bring back, and which I will be more than glad to do that and spearhead.
So it isn't something that we haven't. Remember, we had a president sitting exactly where Walter is sitting, president of Estonia.
Yes.
In that country, the civil service and the private sector, no difference in pay. I mean, it's not as though you're going to gain more, you're going to be better remunerated.
Yeah.
So there are ways of incentivizing people, but my concern here is, how do we get rid of the greed that has become part and parcel of the way we do business in Kenya?
We must give ourselves a chance by killing what you call status quo. To me, that is where everything begins and ends. If we don't give ourselves a chance, if we're going to judge ourselves based on people's mistakes and past, it becomes a challenge.
It does, but how do we get rid of it? Because I'm asking a realistic question, because we're now dealing with an aspect of human nature and what it is. You incentivize people, they'll benefit from the incentives, but it won't stop people from simply wanting to cut other deals for themselves. I'm not saying I have a solution. I'm saying we have a problem that has wormed its way into our very being in this country.
I want to be a responsive government. That we see something like that and we move into fix it. You get? In the sense that today, and I find it very funny, that you wake up one morning and the reason why you have all these traffic jams that you're talking about, it's because one moment you wake up and the road is blocked because there's a construction going on. I find that a very insensitive kind of government, where what is so hard with having a communication that tells your citizenry that tomorrow or the day after, I will be blocking this road, therefore make alternative arrangements. But you wake up one morning, you find something. I want to say this city, we need to give ourselves a chance. Let us give Walter MONG'ARE and his ideas and his team, and I urge you to join me. I'll take you as an advisor. And thank you very much. That's your side hustle. and let's give ourselves a chance for this country. Let's give ourselves another 10 years of different thinking, different doing things. I look at the internet, for instance. A couple of years ago, when the internet was showing up, nobody wanted to have a conversation about the internet. No, it's coming to tech businesses. It's coming to take poster down. Excuse me, technology is here with us. The technological revolution is taking place. We are having different conversation on cryptocurrency and what are those other bitcoins and everybody else. And a government is saying, no, this is not working. We shouldn't implement this. Why can't we have a conversation of the future? Probably the cryptocurrency is a future agenda for this country. Other countries have adopted it. I've seen MasterCard doing something on the crypto, for example. But we have a central bank that is saying, no, this thing is a scheme for one to get rich. Why can't we have that conversation? Why don't we have that conversation with our young people, talking about the future currency? Look at financial technology as we speak. Kenya is a hub of financial technology. And before that, banks were up in arms because this is coming to take their space. But guess what? It has become a lifestyle. Financial technology is taking shape. We as a country, technologically, we are well placed, but we're not having technological conversations. We're talking about cryptocurrency. Oh, no, it's not working. It's a scheme. Why don't we give our young people and ourselves an opportunity to think of tomorrow, of how tomorrow is likely to do? The jobs that we had 10 years ago do not exist right now. So possibly the jobs we are looking at the present time will not exist in another 10 years. So are we having that conversation? Let's have a real conversation. And that is what a Walter MONG'ARE presidency presents. The real conversation for tomorrow and for the future.
I respect the fact that you've put yourself out there. You are campaigning, you're saying, I'd like to be president. You are presenting yourself as an alternative to the leadership of the country. And for people like you, I have utmost respect.
Thank you, sir.
The question I want to ask you, though, is we've been talking about the eventual win of Walter MONG'ARE. So let's talk about the other side. Let's flip the coin. If you don't win,
Yes.
then what?
If I don't win, I win. I'll explain.
How?
By being on this ballot gives us an inspiration that we can actually dream and get there. Personally, as Walter, a small party, following the process as defined by IBC to the letter, to a T, making sure that my team looks at the requirements from a calm kind of approach. Don't leave a letter just because you think they put there by mistake. When they say certified, authenticated, and or don't imagine that you just need to certify, authenticate, and add anything else they said, or just to make sure that within, for me, that's a win. And a win, that win is for the young people of this country and for those of us who want to dream differently. When it comes to the ballot, I've always believed in 2007, I think we were shaking hands by lunchtime when the votes were being counted, and we knew Raila Odinga, who's my worthy competitor, was winning. But what happened?
Yeah.
Something else happened. Blackouts. The TV went off, and well, we know whatever happened after that. I always say, please don't count me out until the votes are counted. And therefore, at that point, if I wouldn't have, had accumulated enough to be pronounced the president of this country on round one, probably we might end up going to a runoff. And again, if I don't make it on a runoff, there's something called conceding and partnering with whoever is the president and to carry on and seek for them to look at my manifesto and see the space. Because the manifesto is, I find that dreams that we sell to people and promises we sell to people for purposes of getting to office, and then it hits us that actually we now need a master plan that is real. So as Umoja Summit Party, we have the master plan more than just the promises.
Yeah.
We have the commitments, which, as we said, when we get to office, the first 100 days, we will have a party just to enjoy ourselves and also to redefine the documents that we've been flying around as manifesto. And in 100 days, then turn them into commitments. That is what 100 days looks like.
So first 100 days for your presidency is relax.
There will be comedy, there will be music, there will be, create employment for those people in the creative sector as we think of a better future tomorrow. I think we are a too negative country. We have become too negative. We are always looking at the negative part of the coin. I just want us to be happy, man. I just want us to increase the happiness index.
I really like what you're saying.
Thank you, sir.
Meaning, even as you're saying it, my mind relaxed.
Yes.
100 days.
Relax.
Guys,
Holiday.
take it easy.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's work ahead, yes, but for now,
Take it easy.
take it easy.
Yeah, I will get all my DJs to be out there. You guys will be having a lot of work to do. We just have fun. We have a government, and we systematically have a happy index going up, and then go out there and fix the country. Yes.
When we are already happy.
And yes.
Approach this work when you're already happy and you're relaxed.
Eric, you will never and you will not see me on top of a pickup abusing Raila Odinga. I've worked for him. I've been his advisor. Okay? He has taught me. He's been my mentor. He's 78. I'm 47. I have 31 years. Why do I need to abuse him? Uhuru Kenyatta was my boss. Ruto was my boss. I learned from them. So by the way, I learned well, and I was a good student. And so at no point will see me on a pickup abusing them. I think it's what we call intergenerational linkage. The older people have done what they needed to do. Give us the baton. We cover the next 100 meters. It's a relay. And it's not an opportunity for me to call them names. I respect them. Tukutane kwa debate. Kila mtu aongee issue zake. Mimi sina time na sitakuwa na time ya kutukana mtu. 100 days we have a party. If we don't become president, we will define what the presidency will look like in the coming years. As it is right now, Walter MONG'ARE's presence on the ballot is a redefining moment. And by the way, it's for all of us. I photocopied the certificate. I will leave you a copy of the nomination certificate from IBC because this candidature is not a Walter MONG'ARE candidature. Ni ya kila mtu. Hata na post tena picture plus the certificate, download it, rub my name, put your name there. It's for all of us. And that's how we will win this election.
I mean, I know we're closing down on this in a few minutes, but also one of the things you talked about was, I mean, I think, and really important now because now we're staring at, issues. And one of the things you talked about was we're educating children, we're educating young people, only to then introduce them to a workforce for which there are no jobs. There's work, but there's no jobs for that. Education is a big deal. Gets, the bulk of the budget, or rather gets one of the highest percentages in the budget. What do you think needs to change in our educational system with what's happening in the world?
The day we killed vocational training and we killed our polytechnics, and that is when, for those of us who were in those schools before, for those of us who had the privilege of going to Form 6, for those of us who had an opportunity, to go to National Youth Service when it worked, and we focused on skills. Today, unaweza tafuta plumber ukakosa. Today, you can look for an electrician ukakosa. The hands, the skills that we are talking about that are vital for every and daily workspace are not there. We have many young people who are theoretical. So the education approach we are taking, forget the CBC thing that we are talking about. If it's something that takes 20 to 21 years, that's okay. It can be let to grow. But the reality is we need to fix them now. We are so much promising people 2063 when they need to feed now, when they need to do things now. So there must be interventions that cater for the guy who has already left school. So CBC is not an option for a guy who needs a job today. Rescaling, on the other end, is what will be priority. You've got basic education in university. Thank you very much. I need you to have your hands working. I need you to have an output that is practical. I need every young person. And by the way, when I get to State House, I want to assure you that every Form 4, ukitoka Form 4, unaingia National Youth Service.
NYS.
That I can guarantee you, because there's an element of order and discipline that our people lack in their mind. And therefore, we need to get ourselves to be patriotic about our country. So when it comes to that, it's reskilling and getting people to have practical skills that are able to do what needs to be done going forward. So other than education, I need to have forums that engage with people. Then we discuss these things. If we empower people, when we talk about startups in this country, majority of the startups are not even from our young people. They're expatriates. Our startups die within the first 1 to 2 years. Why? Because we've not put what we call government equity into startups, where we hold your hand until you succeed, then we let you fly. So we need to give space to the startups so that they can be a port for employment for other people, because each startup can be able to employ 5 other young people out there. So there are interventions. We just need to be agile as a government. We just need to be sensitive and responsive, and we have the best policies in the country. Yeah, mimi nitachukua hizo policies zenye niliona kwa maofisi za serikali and I will implement them, and the country will be better. It's not that they don't exist. It's the goodwill that we need. And by the way, it takes common sense to run a government. Common sense.
That's all it needs.
Common decency.
I've got to ask you this question because many have asked. Why not governor?
First, I'm a believer. 2, you aim for what you want and you go for it. There are no parameters. There's no one who told you that this is the ladder of leadership. I think the experiences I've had in government for the last 12 years, I believe the experience I've had in private and corporate sector for the last 20 years, I think the opportunity that I've had to create products from scratch, a creative industry that you being a presenter or you being an actor was like an act of shame. You don't want people to see you that you act in national theater. Having taken 20 years to establish, right now people are earning from the creative space like they do. Having done Sweet Banana as a song and tested it on Skiza Tune and made the first 35,000 shillings when we began the platforms for remunerating musicians, to today they're earning millions. I want to believe that experience that I have needs to be at the top, and then we can now begin to use that opportunity for that 7-second signature that I have to change the lives of millions of people and our Kenyans.
I don't want to be a wet blanket. I want to speak for those who are asking that question.
Yes.
Reality. Okay. And the reality that with which many are asking this question is, Walter, you're not going to be the president come end of this year.
And who told you?
Wait.
Who told you?
The people. Walter, you're not going to be the president.
No,
However,
have
with
that
all
as an
these
opinion.
all these all these ideas that you have are likely to go to waste for another 5 years because you went for that seat. But you had a bigger chance if you had gone for a different seat.
If you understand the matrices of the various seats, by the way, I could easily make a good women rep. The Constitution does not say that's a seat for women. I could make a good MCA. If I understand the role of an MCA to oversight and to represent the people, then if that is what I wanted to do, I will be an MCA. If I wanted to be a governor, the CEO of a county, I would want to be that. But I want to say, this is what I want to do, and this is the service I want to offer. This is the competence I think I have, and I would want us to give each other a chance and an opportunity. There are 24 million voters out there. Surely, out of that, 8 million will not stop to vote for me. And if 8 million votes for me, the 16 of you will benefit from our administration. Each candidate as we speak right now, you watch the space. We have 24 million kugawana, my friend. Yes, and it's up to us to sell ourselves well. And if there's any Kenyan who's listening to me, including yourself, you will desist from using those words. You will never be. Who told you I will never be? Give me a chance. Let's go to the ballot. Let's count them. And at that point, I will then take what I have and multiply it for future.
And run with it.
Yes. So please, those who are saying I will never, just do me a favor. When you go to the ballot on the 9th, just vote for Walter MONG'ARE and see whether I will never be president.
Give him the chance. Well, you cannot vie for woman rep.
Who said you can't?
The Constitution.
What does it say?
47 women, each elected by the registered voters of the counties, each county constituting a single member constituency.
Until and unless.
Okay.
I never declared my gender.
This is what I was saying. Until and unless you've made that declaration.
Walter, thank you very much for joining us.
No, I thank you. I thank you for the wonderful conversation that we've had. Thank you, Ndu. I'll be more than glad to come on a weekly basis to articulate issues for a better tomorrow. City, thank you. Thanks for not asking me very hard questions, but spare them for our manifesto. Eric, I will remember you for when I become the president that you think I won't. I would hire you. Okay, but I want to thank you, and on behalf of the Umoja Summit Party and all the wonderful people, young people who have worked tirelessly to have Walter MONG'ARE on the candidature, I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to being of service to the country in the next 60 days.
Thank you very much, Walter. Congratulations for the far that you've come.
Thank you.
That ticket, I know the nomination certificate, yes, we want our photocopies.
Yes.
We want to also own it.
Thank you.
And own the pride.
Yeah.